More daylily flowers get thrown away in the last week of July than in any other week, and almost nobody notices it. A stalk that looks brown and finished from the porch can still be carrying a dozen unopened buds, and one snip sends them all to the compost pile. That one habit, repeated in yard after yard, quietly ends bloom seasons weeks early nationwide. In the next few minutes, I will show you what your daylilies need in these final July days, the mistakes draining this season's flowers and next year's display, and the 5-minute checks that fix it all. No special products, no fancy tools, just a sharper eye on the plant. My name is John Sam, and this is Seniors Gardening Advice, where advice stays practical, honest, and doable at any age. If that sounds like your kind of gardening, the subscribe button is completely free. Let's get into it. Here is the first mental shift, because everything else in this video hangs on it. Late July does not mean the same thing in every garden. A daylily growing in Zone 4 Minnesota might be sitting at its absolute peak this week, pumping out fresh flowers every morning. That exact same variety in Zone 8 Georgia may have finished its main show back in June and could be quietly gearing up for a second round. Same plant, same week, two completely different situations. So the calendar cannot make your decisions for you. The plant makes the decisions, and your job is to read it. Every tip from here forward starts with a look, not a date. Walk out, kneel down, or use a garden stool, and actually examine what your daylilies are doing before you touch a single leaf. That habit separates gardens that bloom deep into August from gardens that shut down early for no reason. While you are out there, tell me what you find. Drop your state or USDA zone in the comments, along with what your daylilies look like this week. I read every comment, and your answers help me make videos that fit real gardens. Mistake number 1. Cutting a stalk that is still working. The most damaging late July mistake comes down to one piece of biology that plenty of longtime gardeners have never been told clearly. Each daylily flower opens in the morning and is finished by nightfall. 1 day per flower, which is where the name comes from. But the stalk that flower sits on, called a scape, is not a one-flower stem. It is a branched structure loaded with buds, a dozen, 2 dozen, sometimes more on an established clump. The flower that wowed you on Tuesday was one bud, Wednesday's flower was a different bud, and the ones that have not opened yet are sitting there, firm and green, waiting their turn over the coming days and weeks. Now play out what happens in a typical yard. A gardener sees 3 or 4 browned, mushy spent flowers on a stalk, decides the whole thing is finished, and snips the scape off at the base. In that one cut, every unopened bud on that stalk is gone. Days or even weeks of future flowers dropped on the compost pile because the stalk looked messy from a distance. The fix costs nothing but a moment of attention. Before cutting any scape, trace it from the base to the tip, checking every branch. If you find firm, closed buds anywhere on that structure, the scape stays. Pull off the spent flowers by hand, they come away with a gentle tug, and let the remaining buds keep developing. The only scape that earns a cut at the base is one with nothing left. No firm buds, just dried remains, and maybe some swelling seed pods you do not want. That one is truly done. If you have ever cut a stalk, looked down at it lying on the grass, and noticed plump green buds you had not seen, tell me about it in the comments. You are in very good company, and it never has to happen again. Deadheading, what it really does for you. Since we are already handling spent flowers, let's cover deadheading properly, because the internet has muddied this topic. Removing spent flowers is worth doing, and here is why. Once a flower fades, if it was pollinated, and in any garden with bees it probably was, the plant starts building a seed pod behind it. Seed pods are expensive. The energy that goes into ripening seeds is energy pulled away from opening the remaining buds, from feeding the roots, and from storing reserves for next year. Snapping off spent blooms every day or two keeps that energy where you want it, keeps the clump fresh, and gives you a built-in reason to inspect each scape for hidden buds. 5 minutes per session, real returns. Now for the part a lot of videos get wrong. Deadheading does not cause a daylily to rebloom. Reblooming is genetic. It is written into the variety. A cultivar bred as a single-season bloomer gives you one glorious flush, no matter how faithfully you deadhead. What deadheading does is prevent seed production, tidy the plant, and support its energy budget. Real benefits, worth your time, but not a magic trick. If you want flowers again in late summer, The honest path is planting varieties that are documented rebloomers. Stella d'Oro is the famous one, and Happy Returns, Rosy Returns, Pardon Me, and Chicago Apache are all reliable repeat performers across a wide range of American gardens. The last week of July is a smart time to shop for these, since many nurseries run midsummer sales on potted daylilies that establish beautifully when planted in late summer with steady water. Mistake number 2. Watering the mulch instead of the roots. Daylilies carry a reputation as tough, drought-proof plants, and for pure survival, that reputation is earned. But surviving July and performing through July are two very different outcomes, and the gap between them is water. During active bloom and bud development, daylilies want consistent root zone moisture, roughly 1 inch of water per week counting rainfall. Push that higher for sandy soil that drains fast, for anything growing in a container, and for gardens in zones 7 through 10, where late July heat bakes the soil hard. Here is the watering mistake I see more than any other. The gardener stands with the hose every evening, gives each clump a nice sprinkle for 30 seconds, and walks away feeling responsible. The water darkens the mulch, wets the top inch of soil, and evaporates by morning. Meanwhile, daylily roots run 8 to 10 inches deep, and down at that depth, the soil is bone dry. The plant is being watered daily, and is water stressed at the same time. Buds shrivel before opening, flowers shrink, and the gardener cannot figure out why, because they watered every day. The correction is simple. Water deeply, slowly, and less often. 1 or 2 thorough sessions per week that push moisture down to that 8 or 10 inch root zone will outperform daily sprinkles every time. Not sure how deep your water is going? Push a long screwdriver into the soil an hour after watering. It slides easily through moist soil and grinds to a halt in dry soil. And wherever it gets hard is how deep your water went. That little trick beats any moisture meter I have ever bought. 2 more watering details that matter in late July. First, aim the water at the soil, not over the top of the plant. Wet flowers spot and collapse faster, and wet foliage in humid weather invites fungal trouble. Second, let the surface dry out between those deep waterings. Daylilies want deep moisture available below and a surface that cycles dry. Constant sogginess around the crown is how you buy yourself rot problems. If you are getting something useful out of this so far, tapping the like button takes 1 second and tells YouTube to show this to other gardeners staring at tired daylilies this week. I appreciate every single one. Mistake number 3, the summer haircut. This next one bothers me the most, because it is so common and so unnecessary. The scene goes like this. The main flush winds down in late July, the clump looks a bit ragged, and the gardener, wanting tidiness, takes shears to the whole plant and cuts every leaf down to 5 or 6 inches, because they read somewhere that this is standard daylily care after bloom. That advice exists, but it belongs to one specific situation, and only that situation. When you dig up a daylily to divide and replant it, you cut the foliage short to reduce moisture loss and make the divisions easier to handle. That is a transplanting technique, never routine summer maintenance for an established clump staying put. Every green leaf in late July is a little solar panel, converting sunlight into carbohydrates and sending them down into the roots as stored energy. That stored energy is what funds a rebloom cycle, if your variety has one coming. It carries the plant through winter dormancy, and it determines how many fans emerge next spring, how many scapes they throw, and how full your display looks next June. Shear off the healthy foliage in July, and you cut the power to that whole operation at its most productive moment. The plant will regrow leaves, but it pays for them out of the reserves it was banking for next year. You traded next season's flowers for a tidy look this August. So here is the rule. Remove what is dead, what is damaged, and what is diseased. Remove fully finished scapes at the base. Leave every healthy green leaf standing, even if the clump looks a little tired to your eye. Tired and working is exactly what a daylily should look like after its big show. Reading yellow leaves like a pro. I just told you to leave green leaves alone, so let's talk about the leaves that are not green, because late July always brings some yellow, and not all yellow means the same thing. Some yellowing is completely normal. The oldest outer leaves on a mature fan finish their working life and fade naturally, one here and one there around the base. That is the plant retiring old foliage, not a problem. Peel them away cleanly and move on. Other patterns deserve a closer look. Daylily rust shows up as small orange-yellow powdery spots on leaves and scapes. The tissue test settles it fast. Rub a suspect leaf with a white tissue or paper towel, and if orange or yellow dust comes away, you are looking at rust spores. Remove affected leaves, get them out of the garden rather than into your compost, and keep all watering at soil level, because splash and humidity are how rust travels. Leaf streak is another fungal issue with a different look. Long yellow streaks starting at the leaf tip and working downward, browning as they go. The response is similar. Remove affected foliage, improve air circulation, keep water off the leaves. The one demanding immediate attention is crown rot. The signature is an entire fan, all the leaves from one growing point, yellowing together, with soft or discolored bases that sometimes pull free of the crown with little resistance. That points to waterlogged soil and rot at the crown, and no fertilizer or extra water helps. In fact, extra water makes it worse. The fix is drainage. Remove the affected tissue, let the area dry, and address whatever is holding water there. A low spot, compacted soil, or an irrigation head soaking the same place daily. One more late July troublemaker deserves a mention. Spider mites. Hot, dry weather is their favorite. Look for fine stippling on leaves, a faded bronzy look, and in bad cases, fine webbing near the leaf bases. A strong jet of water at the undersides of leaves every few days knocks them back, and a well-watered plant resists them far better than a drought-stressed one. Notice how many problems trace back to watering done wrong. It is the backbone of midsummer care. Mistake number 4. Feeding a plant you have not diagnosed. When a daylily looks rough in late July, the first instinct for a lot of us is to reach for the fertilizer bag. I understand the impulse, and I am asking you to pause, because that instinct is wrong more often than it is right. A daylily suffering in dry soil needs water, not nitrogen. A clump crawling with spider mites needs the mites handled. A clump that has bloomed less for 2 straight seasons is almost certainly overcrowded and needs dividing, which no fertilizer can substitute for. Pour nitrogen onto any of these situations, and you get a flush of soft, lush leaf growth that looks like recovery and is not. Soft growth in high heat is also exactly what sap-sucking pests prefer, so you can make things worse while feeling productive. Before any fertilizer touches your daylilies this summer, run through 5 quick checks. Is the soil moist 8 inches down? Use that screwdriver again. Is the clump getting 6 hours of sun? Is it severely crowded? Is drainage decent? Are pests or disease visible on close inspection? If one of those checks fails, fix that first, because that is your real problem. And if every check passes and your daylilies simply look less vibrant than at peak, that is not a deficiency. That is a perennial past its main flush, doing exactly what perennials do. Keep the deep watering going, leave the foliage alone, and let the plant run its cycle. If you garden in a warmer zone and you are growing known rebloomers, a light feeding with a balanced or low nitrogen fertilizer in late July can support the second flush. But that is a targeted decision for a healthy plant, not a rescue attempt for a struggling one. Here is a piece of the season almost nobody talks about. The last week of July is your evaluation window. With this season's performance fresh in front of you, walk the beds with a notepad or your phone and answer 2 questions for each clump. Did it bloom well? And is it crowded? A daylily clump typically wants dividing every 4 to 6 years. The signs are unmistakable. A dense donut of fans with a weak center, fewer scapes than past years, and smaller flowers. You will not divide this week. The sweet spot for that job in most American zones is late summer into early fall, roughly 6 weeks before your first hard frost, so divisions can root in before winter. But late July is when you can still see which clumps underperformed. Mark them with a tag or a stake, and future you, standing in the September garden, will know exactly where to dig. Trying to remember in September which clumps bloomed poorly in July is a losing game, and this 5-minute walk wins it for you. Before anyone writes off their daylily bed for the year, do one last inspection, and this one is honestly fun. Rebloomers announce their second act quietly. New scapes emerge from the center of the clump, down among the foliage, and they are easy to miss on a casual walk past. A fresh scape looks like a firm, rounded, upright stem, clearly different in feel from the flat, strappy leaf fans around it. Part the foliage at the center of each clump and look. If you find one, That plant is planning an encore, and your job is to protect it. Keep the deep watering steady, keep shears away from that area, and let it rise. Finding a hidden August scape you almost cut off is one of this hobby's small thrills, and the check costs 30 seconds per clump. Let me pull this together into something you can act on this week. Trace every scape from base to tip before cutting, and if firm buds remain anywhere on it, it stays. Pull spent flowers regularly through the bloom period, and cut only fully finished scapes at the base. Water deeply once or twice a week so moisture reaches 8 to 10 inches down, and confirm it with the screwdriver test. Keep all water at soil level, off the flowers and foliage. Leave every healthy green leaf in place, no summer haircuts for established clumps. Diagnose yellowing by its pattern. Single old leaves are routine, orange dust is rust. Tip-down streaks are leaf streak, and a whole soft-based fan collapsing means a drainage emergency. Hold the fertilizer until water, sun, crowding, drainage, and pests are all ruled out. Walk the beds and mark crowded, underperforming clumps for division in late summer, and check the center of every clump for new scapes before declaring the season over. The thread running through all of it is the idea we started with. The plant decides, the calendar does not. Two gardens on the same street can need opposite care in the same week, and the gardener who looks closely beats the gardener who follows a schedule every time. If this video saved even one scape full of buds, consider subscribing and ringing the bell, because the next one covers what these same daylilies need through August and into fall. Share this with a gardening friend who owns an overly enthusiastic pair of shears. They will thank you. And leave your state or zone in the comments, along with what your daylilies are doing this week, because your answers shape what I make next. This is John Sam with Seniors Gardening Advice. Now go take a slow walk past those daylilies and look closely before anything gets cut.